Hey everybody, my name's Chip. Welcome to Transformers Masterpiece Theater. Today we're going to take a look at FT-41 Sheridan, aka Warpath from the original G1 Transformers cartoon. Let's roll out! Very quick unboxing. Pull out the styrofoam box with the FT-41 on the front. Little plastic. Sheridan. The mask. And of course the instructions and the stats card that comes with him. So here he is, Fans Toys Sheridan. When you first pull this guy out of the box, you're immediately impressed. The weight alone on this guy was enough to make me go, wow, even before I got down to checking out the amazing details on this guy. Got a really nice paint job, lots of die-cast parts all over this guy. One thing I did notice that I've seen commented on is that there is some lubrication all over various areas of the figure. I particularly noticed it on the front of the legs. Kind of freaked me out at first. I didn't know what was going on, but then I saw some comments on the internet that people said that they had also noticed that there was some lubrication on the figures and in the joints and that. So nothing to worry about there. Apparently that's totally normal. When you do pull him out of the box, just note his arms are actually collapsed up at the elbows, so you just need to pull them down when you pull them out of the box, just like this. I find if you pivot at the elbow while you're pulling down, it loosens it up a bit that you can get in there and pull the arm down like that. And then same thing on the other side. And then you also just pull the tracks forward like that, or push them forward like that so they're up against his forearms. And there you go. When you start taking a good look at Sheridan, you realize that this guy is right out of the original cartoon. The placement of the coloring, the maroon burgundy over the body, and the silver in the specific areas in the tracks, here on the backpack, right where it's supposed to be. And everything about this immediately brings back those memories of all those episodes from the cartoon that you remember watching as a kid. As you can see with the comparison here, again, the colors and everything are all exactly where they're supposed to be. Head sculpt is really nice. The blue eyes surrounded by the silver paint behind the maroon burgundy faceplate. Faceplate has some nice venting detail in it, and if I remember correctly, these vents lit up blue when he was speaking. So again, good job by Fans Toys capturing those details. If you look at the back of the figure, no kibble going on here at all. Everything looks like it's right where it's supposed to be. If I was going to nitpick at anything at all, it's just the screws here on the back of his legs and maybe even up here in the shoulders. They just kind of stick out a little bit. But honestly, I'm really nitpicking here if I'm looking for anything wrong with this figure on the back. Otherwise, I think the figure is fantastic. And there's die-cast everywhere on this guy. A lot more die-cast on it than you figured that you would get for a figure of this size. His tracks, both of them die-cast. Tracks in here are die-cast. Even the front legs here, his shins, this bottom half of his legs, these are die-cast as well. And I can tell because I'm using Jobby's cold touch technology, patent pending, but that's die-cast, that's die-cast, that's die-cast. Lots of die-cast on a figure for this size. And everything about this guy just feels solid, and it's reinforced every time that you pick him up. He just feels solid. The weight of the figure, the stiffness in the joints, he just feels like a solid figure. Even with the reported issues around the knees breaking off or being stiff, I know the left leg's been reported on breaking off on a few figures, but he just feels solid. Now, the one big complaint I do have about this figure is, as nice as the paint looks, the metallic touch, really nice. The trade-off with a metallic finish is that it's going to be prone to chipping. I've gone through 3 transformations with this guy, front to back, from robot to all mode and back. And I've ended up with some pretty noticeable paint chips on the back of the figure, as you can see right here, especially in the knee area. There is a bit of a complicated transformation that goes on in around the knee and the leg that I'm sure some of you may have seen in other videos. But if you don't have the leg in the right position when you're trying to rotate out the tracks, which sit in the middle of these tracks here, you'll actually get hooked up on the back of the knee peg and this area here. And as you can see, I've got some chipping going on because I accidentally touched the track against this area because I didn't have the leg in the right position. Again, we'll go through that when we go through the transformation. I'll give you some tips there on how to avoid that situation. Let's take a look at his articulation. Like most Fan Toys figures, Sheridan's head is on a ball joint, so it does tilt forward this much, and it tilts back that much. Head rotates 360 degrees. Arms will rotate up this much, and they will rotate back this much. Now there is a double hinge joint that's going on inside his shoulder where you can actually get some additional articulation. They do allow the shoulders to rotate up this much. And then if you pivot them out like this, then you'll actually get 360 degree rotation on his shoulders. Now, of course, what this does mean is that you've got this awful gapping that's going on here. So I don't typically leave his shoulders out in that position. I will sort of bring them in about halfway there. And he does have a bicep rotation, so he can rotate all the way around this way, all the way around the back. Just be careful, the tracks do get kind of in the way when you're rotating the arms around, so you just want to be careful that you're not hooking up in anything there and causing any paint chipping. Elbows bend that much, a little more than 90 degrees, and straight. You got hand rotation. And rotates all the way around, all the way around. His fingers are just on a single pivot, so they do open, but they're not individual. Torso swivel, 90 degrees either way. And he has an ab crunch. His ab crunch is actually fairly extreme. It's actually 90 degrees. Not really sure how I feel about this. I don't know why Fan Toys thought it was necessary to have him ab crunch that far forward. Might be able to, or might be compensating for the fact that his head tilt forward isn't that much. But am I ever going to do this? I don't think so. We got his hip plates. He's got a single hip plate in the front that flips all the way up, and two on the sides that flip out. That gets to his legs. Legs are on a universal ball joint, so it does allow him to, with the hip plates out, spread all the way out like that. And of course, leg goes all the way forward like that. This leg goes all the way back like that. So he's got some fairly good articulation there in his legs. Again, his joints are very stiff, so when you're moving him around, there's parts of the joints and that just don't want to cooperate with the way that you want them to stand. You have to work at them a bit. Like this one. Oh, man. So his knees do bend 90 degrees all the way to about there. There's been some other reports, too, of the right leg or the right knee, and I had the same issue with mine. There's some point where you get to about there, and there's resistance in the knee. And I found you just keep pressing at it and it will click. And then you do get past that point, and I haven't had any issues with the leg, with its mobility or stiffness or anything. It's interesting when you put the leg back, there's actually no problem, no clicking noise or anything, or stiffness in the joint when you're moving the knee back. It's only when you're trying to rotate it back. So his foot tilt forward is actually not that much. You only get about that much. Foot tilt back, same thing, not that much rotation. Come back to the front. It doesn't have any rotation out to the outside, but he does have a lot coming on the inside, which helps a lot with his posability. Lots of good options for posability. Joints are nice and solid and stiff all around. Even with the knees, I mean, you can tell there's a lot going on in the knees, but I never got the sense that any of them were about to break off, and he's a nice, again, still a nice solid figure. Not a lot of features or accessories that come with Sheridan. His gun barrel is capable of tilting up that much and down that much. You can also extend the barrel forward if you like. That's more for his alt mode when he's in tank mode. In robot mode, you compress the gun barrel in like that. Of course, also comes with the alien mask from the episode Hoist Goes to Hollywood. Again, lots of really good detail here in this mask as well. You can see the dots on the face and on the forehead. There's even dots in the eyes, in the orange area for the pupils. Teeth are painted silver. Again, Fan Toys really paying attention to the details. So the mask goes on very easily. There's 3 pressure points on the back of the mask. So 1, 2, 3, and they go on very easily. You just literally slide the face mask onto the front so that it sits on there like that. And then it very easily slides back off, which is nice. No possibility of doing any paint chipping to the face sculpt or the head sculpt. It is a softer plastic, so that's nice. And finally, he also comes with this stats card. Stats card is the same size, shape, and feel as a credit card. It has a picture of the figure on the front, which is a little disappointing. I actually would have preferred that this was the art on the box and not another picture of the figure. Back of the card has bio or character description. It's in English, so that's nice. The stats aren't in English, which is a little annoying. I have no idea which number belongs to which stat on him, and I don't understand why the companies continue to do this. I'm also not sure why the companies continue to make these cards, considering that since this is a picture of the figure, even if it was a picture of the box art, I don't know why I would ever take this out and look at it again. Especially with a picture of the figure. I have the figure right here in front of me. Why would I take this card out and look at it? The description, the bio is on the back of the box. Why would I take this out and look at it? The stats are, I have no idea. Why would I ever take this out and look at it? So it's nice to have these, I guess, but I just don't understand why the companies continue to make these. Quick size comparison. Here's Sheridan and MP-47 Hound. MP-21 Bumblebee, and finally FT-10X Phoenix. I guess I did find a use for that ab crunch after all. Now, interestingly enough, when I pulled Sheridan out of the box for the first time, I actually thought he was a bit tall to be considered a mini-bot. But shout out to Mike Lorber here. Mike Lorber has done an awful lot of excellent work in researching the size and height of all the Autobots and the Decepticons from G1. He's actually created a downloadable or printable poster, which you can actually purchase from Mike, and a link to that is down in the description. But as you'll see from the picture on the video, that Warpath is almost the same height as Hound. So I was pleasantly surprised when I actually put Sheridan and Hound next to each other that the Sheridan figure is almost the same height as the Hound figure, which means both of them are in Masterpiece scale. Let's take a look at the transformation, talk about the instructions, and some of the things to watch out for. Now, the instructions aren't great. Pictures are nice, but they aren't great at explaining what step that you're at. At least what you do get with Sheridan is the instructions do start from robot mode, and they do go all the way to his alt mode, which is nice because Sheridan actually does come shipped in robot mode, as opposed to Takara Tomy, who keeps shipping us figures in alt mode with instructions that start in robot mode, and then we have to figure them out in reverse. Luckily, the instructions do actually give you a few very important tips, of course, which is what instructions are supposed to do. The first one is the peg at the back of his leg. This has to be folded open. It's what holds his leg in the up and down position. When you're doing the transformation, you do actually have to swing it out to the side. If you don't open this peg before you swing the leg, you have the chance of snapping the leg off. The other tip is here with his hinge arms. His hinge arms at the backpack that can be actually fold into 1 or 2 positions. So this is the correct position with them sort of folded in, and this is the wrong position with them folded out. Same thing with his tank mode. They also have another picture here that shows that the arms are supposed to be folded in this position on the tank mode, as it says fold as shown. Now, I have an issue with both of these for Fan Toys, that if you had to actually put in a picture in the instructions that shows that a part of the transformation can be in one or another position and one of them is wrong, then maybe you need to go back to the drawing board and look at your transformation. And now onto the transformation. I'm going to do this in a slightly different process than what's in the instructions just because I find it's easier. And I think others have reported the same. I normally start with the upper half, the torso, and then do the legs afterwards, and I find that that's a lot easier. Open the flap on his arm. Rotate his fist into his forearm. Same thing on the other side. Open the flap, rotate the fist in, close the flap. Press on the back of the tracks, both sides so they're level with his arms. We're going to collapse the arms by making sure this tab goes into this slot. Press up on the arms and click into place. Same thing on the other side. Pivot the shoulders out on the double hinge and down. Same thing on the other side. Now you'll rotate the inside of the double hinge arm all the way forward. Then you're going to unlock either side of the chest plate. There's 2 pins underneath each side that's locked it into the torso. You just have to press up and they will pop out like that. Same thing on the other side. Lift up on the backpack. Open up the hatch behind his head. Lift up to unlock the center of his chest plate. Then you're going to lift up this entire upper section up over his head and rotate it to the back. Next, you'll rotate his head by the base of his neck, not the head. The base here rotates 180 degrees. If you don't rotate the base, the head won't fit into the hatch area in the turret properly. Then you'll pop up the back of the turret. Lift up on this portion under the turret and extend out. Rotate this portion out to the side. Then rotate the turret back. Unfold this flap. Rotate this piece up through the double hinge arms. Both these pieces are on a double hinge joint. The pieces that made up his top chest and his shoulder. You have to work them a bit, but they will fold up to the middle so that they're sitting together like this. Next, you'll want to fold the arms back in on the double hinge joint. There is a half moon shape here, which is where the front of the double hinge arm fits into as you're collapsing the arms, so just pay attention to that. Now we'll rotate this piece to the front, which will become the front of the tank, and rotate the turret forward. Fold his head down into the turret. Now the legs, make sure you unfold these 2 pins. These are the pins that are holding the legs in place and will break the knees off if you don't open them. Fold the leg out. Same on the other side. So the next we're going to get these tracks out. The best thing to do is to try to keep the feet always pointing up like this as you're working through the steps to rotate these tracks around. So the tracks are in behind this panel. I'm going to try and get it out. I find the easiest way is to actually push from the back instead of trying to pull from the front, and it'll pop off. and you want to rotate it out 180 degrees. So this is the area where I kept getting hung up. You want to try to keep the tracks level with this flat area here, so when you're rotating the tracks like this, you're not getting hung up on any of the parts around the knee in this area. So always make sure that that area is flat as you're trying to rotate the tracks. Next, we'll fold this flap flat with the top of the track. Then fold the top half of that flap up 90 degrees. And then rotate the tracks 90 degrees and click the panel into place. Same thing on the other side. Flap goes down, top half folds up, and then the whole thing rotates 90 degrees and clicks into place. Pull out on the feet, pull down on the tracks, and rotate the foot forward so it becomes the front of the tank. Click it into place and line up the tracks. Same thing on the other side. Pull the foot down, pull the tracks down, and then rotate the foot forward and click everything into place. Here there's two tabs that are hooked into the hip areas. You just lift up on the upper torso and it'll pop out. Rotate back and fold flat against the back of the legs. Now we'll just open up the rest of the front of the tank. There's an additional smaller flap right here, and it's extremely difficult to get at. You almost need like a type of plastic removal tool to get in behind it just to lift it up. But if you struggle with it enough, you'll eventually get it to open up and pull it forward. Rotate both the legs forward to form the front of the tank. Make sure that the silver part under the turret is lower than the two halves of the tank. Otherwise, when you're trying to put them together, it'll get in the way. Now, when you're putting the two halves of the tank together, there's tabs here and here that connect into these tabs here and right there. Now, you're literally just going to work these two halves together towards the middle, paying attention to the tabs that I pointed out earlier, that they're all lined up properly. But you're almost massaging this into place and making sure that everything's just lined up where it's supposed to be. It takes a little bit of work. As you can see, I'm struggling with this a little bit just to get everything to snap into place. But eventually, as you gently move everything around and find the right areas and snap everything into place, everything does line up. Pay attention to right here and make sure the tabs on either side of the centerpiece are lined up for the front of the tank. As you can see, it just popped into place. And then everything just sort of lines up. You also just want to make sure that the tank treads are lined up. Just snap them into place. And again, just work everything together until all the gaps and spaces are gone. On the bottom of the tank, you just want to close up these flaps here. They just snap into place. There's two flaps here that cover the space on the top of the tank. Just pop up the turret, get it out of the way so you can get access to the flaps, and fold them forward. Same on the other side. And then push the turret back into place. Here you need to pay attention to the hinge arms. Make sure this is level with the tank and the inside hinges are down at a 45-degree angle. Then you want to make sure on the bottom side of the tank that this flap is open and pointing to the inside center of the tank. Another spot to watch out for, there's a tab on either side here that slides into a slot that's on the inside hinge arm. So it goes like this. And finally, on the underside of the tank, you'll see there's these two slots here that are on the back of the fists. And you actually need to force them onto these metal pins or tabs here. They're actually die cast, and they take a lot of force. You just have to work them on there and push, and it will eventually click into place. So slide the back half of the tank forward. And like I said, you just need to push the back in until you hear it click. And same thing on the other side. On the back of the tank, that's the engine compartment, there's 6 pegs here underneath and 6 holes underneath the engine compartment. You just press down so that those 6 holes line up with the 6 pegs. Now it may not, as you can see on mine, it's not really settling properly. Typically it's because the tab that I pointed out earlier that goes inside the center of the tank is out of position. You just take something pointing like a pen or whatever and reach into that area and press up on that tab, and then it will help to line up the engine compartment with the holes, and it'll snap into place. And then finally there's these 2 flaps on the back of the engine compartment. You just fold them out and press them into the areas on the outside of the engine compartment to lock everything into place. And there's just one more thing that I forgot, and it's not in the instructions, but there's this flap at the back of the engine compartment that you just need to fold forward, and it covers up an open area that's underneath the turret. Okay, the last thing, I promise, one more thing. I always forget this, I don't know why, some kind of mental block, but on the inside of each of the tracks at the front, it makes up his feet. You just fold these away, and you just rotate them forward like this, and push them up into place. And one last step is just to extend the barrel forward like this. So again, the paint is in all the right places. The maroon burgundy, which covers most of the figure, and then the silver's in all the right places around the engine compartment, and of course in around the tracks, same as what you saw in the figure. Lots of nice details in this as well. You get rivets, headlights, tow hooks, tracks, more rivets, taillights, vents, even more rivets, turret, hatch, gun barrel, axe, and shovel. What impresses me the most is Fan Toys went through an awful lot of effort to make this alt mode look exactly like a Sheridan tank. Something as small as the box on the top of the barrel, or the axe and the shovel on the back, as I just pointed out. I mean, that's impressive. No real kibble on the bottom of the figure. You can notice the legs and the hip plate here on the bottom, but that's about it. It's so seamlessly integrated you don't really notice it. Doesn't really have any features in this mode. The gun barrel will tilt up and down the same as it did in his robot mode. The only other feature, and I'm not even sure I want to show this to you guys, but the hatch that's on the back of his head, it does actually open up. And all it does is it reveals this screw on the inside. I'm not even sure why you would do this. Why reveal the screw? I mean, I don't get it. So, quick size comparison. Here's Hasbro's MP06 Blue Streak. And once again, MP21 Bumblebee. And finally, MP22 Ultra Magnus. And for this size comparison, I actually thought that Sheridan was a bit small for a tank, but again, he is supposed to be a mini-bot, so I guess he's a mini-tank? Final notes on FT-41 Sheridan. It is a fantastic figure. He's heavy, solid, highly detailed, lots of posability, definitely in scale with the MP line, and plenty of die-cast all around. Everything you'd expect from Fan Toys. My biggest frustration was the transformation, but this does seem to be on par for the course with Fan Toys.